Welcome to the Simply Financial podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra. So hopefully you've been listening to the Simply Financial podcast the last couple of weeks, because today's episode is the third part of a three-part series that is a discussion regarding toxic money beliefs. So if you haven't listened to the previous two episodes, I suggest you do so, although it's not a requirement. This episode will finish up the list of 12 toxic money beliefs. We're going to do the last four today. And when I say we, I have Lindy Brock with me again. She's been on all three episodes, kicking around some of our thoughts and ideas regarding these 12 toxic money beliefs. So Lindy, you ready to finish up the list today?
Yes, I am.
So let's kick it off with, where's my list here? Money can't buy happiness. Why don't you go first? What do you think about this? I have a lot to say.
So this brings us kind of back to our number one toxic money belief, but money is a tool to fund your life goals. You know, you just have to look at it right. It can't buy happiness, and it can buy happiness, but it's not the end all be all. It's all in how you look at it and use it to meet your goals.
Yes, I think that's well said. I may be a little less kind for folks that are plagued by this toxic money habit, because if I wanted to be argumentative, so the corollary to that would be that the lack of money buys happiness?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. So I kind of call BS. I think I've done this the second time in the list. It's such an oversimplification. It's one of those expressions that sounds quaint. It sounds wise. It sounds like grandma's wisdom, but it's horse crap. It's horse crap. Yes, money can't buy happiness. No more that no money can buy happiness. It is a tool. And if you use money to improve the quality of your life, your family's life, and if you earn that money, sticking with a recurring theme in our series, Lindy, that if you're earning money because you're being a good steward of the money, and you're making money because you're serving and helping and providing a quality good or service in the marketplace, you're delivering value. Yes, money can buy you happiness in some ways. Are you not happy when you eat? Yes, I'm happy when I eat, and I need to use some of my money to eat. Now, it could be ramen noodles, which I don't know how much the ramen noodles cost these days. You know what I mean, right?
39 cents a pack.
Yes, I lived on ramen noodles. When I was first out of college and I was not making money and I lived in a blank hole apartment, I ate them routinely. But it was still money that I had to spend there. Now today, fast forward over these many years, now that I'm 51, I might spend more money to buy better food. But you know what? I'm happy when I eat. I'm happy when I don't have to walk to work, that I have a car. I'm happy when I don't have to live in a house with no heat, considering that I live in Connecticut and we have something called winter. That makes me happy. So I think this expression, when people say it, it has an appeal until you start to think about it with any deepness at all. You realize it's hogwash. So am I being too mean?
I think you are a little bit, because I think it boils down to appreciating what you have. You can have nothing, no money, and still be completely happy. Yes, if you had some money, it would probably make you happier, but
Yes.
it's not going to buy you the deep-rooted happiness that you're seeking. If you have all the money in the world, some people with so much money are miserable.
Miserable.
Yes.
Yeah. And an example of that is the classic example, the stereotype is trust fund babies. And I don't know if you've had an occasion to meet any quote unquote trust fund babies. I have. And they have a reputation for being very self-destructive, very unhappy people. And I've seen that anecdotally. But that's less about the money, I think, and more about other toxic money beliefs about deserving it, and a lack of fulfillment, a lack of purpose and productivity. You know, I take tremendous pride, like a lot of people do, when I talk to my kids about the arc of my life, about going to school and starting a career, and it going tough in the early going and not making a lot of money, and then having success that builds up. That's part of the fabric of my story, my family story. If everything is just handed to you, like in the trust fund baby story, I could see how that could be difficult. But that's not, to me, an application of the money can't buy happiness.
Okay.
So if you're listening to this and you have any belief in money can't buy happiness, throw it away. It's horse crap.
So on to our second toxic money belief of today. I can never have enough. What are your thoughts on that?
This is almost the opposite of this. There are people that are just in the rat race, the rat in the wheel kind of thing, that they never feel satisfied. They always need more, always need bigger, always need better, which in and of itself, Lindy, is not bad. But if you don't have contentment, if you don't have peace in what you have and where you've come from and what you've accomplished and where you're going, the I can never have enough is toxic and can be destructive. And it falls under the adage of you need to stop and smell the roses. And I can tell you, I'm not necessarily guilty of you can never have enough, but something related to that is sometimes I could just gloss over successes and not really take enough time to reflect on them and to celebrate them and to kind of take note. I can be guilty of just moving on to the next kind of thing. I'm goal oriented, an A personality, and that's something that I definitely have to check and be wary of, because it's not really, I wouldn't say it's toxic, but it's not healthy. It's definitely toxic if you don't have any contentment and peacefulness, that you're just, I need bigger, better, faster, and that you're just on that grind. That's very toxic. What are your thoughts and experience with this?
So you tend to see this in people that aren't working for a specific purpose. So they just go and go and go and go and go, and they get burnt out. And it's because they don't enjoy anything. So having a purpose, working towards that purpose, and even working for more and more and more with that purpose, and looking back to see how you're working towards your purpose. And like as a business owner, your purpose, you're making the community better by, having employees and supporting those employees. You're making the community better by serving our communities, by helping them be more financially successful. That purpose and that being your main driver is fabulous. And looking back towards that and seeing your purpose is great. But not having that purpose and just keep going for more and more and more, not having enough, that is toxic.
Yeah. So I talked a little bit kind of on the grand scale. Where we actually see this in the practice is that people don't feel like they have enough to retire.
Yeah.
And then I commonly will say, tongue in cheek, but it is true, it never makes sense to retire, because you're always going to have more money if you keep working and you stop spending your nest egg.
Right.
But that's not what we're after. We're talking about personal finance, and we only have one life to live. And if you want to retire and you have the financial wherewithal to retire and everything lines up, there's no reason to keep working if it no longer appeals to you for one or more reasons that may exist for you. And that's part of the critical role we play in working with clients, because if they don't know the numbers and they haven't thought through the financial planning process in retirement, they may be kind of making decisions blindly. And one of the, I think, noblest things that we do is help clients determine can and if they can they retire? What would it look like? What are the risks? What kind of income could they generate? What are the assumptions? So that they have a clearer picture in writing, usually, as well as graphics, so that they could kind of see how it plays out, to empower them to have more information so that they can make an informed decision as to what's right for them. And sometimes retiring early is correct. Sometimes people want to work later. Many times people continue working even though they can afford to retire. But the trick is, if you have the financial wherewithal to step away for work, but choose to stay at work, that's healthy. And that's what you would strive for. A worse scenario is that you want to be done with work, or you're forced to be done with work, but you don't have the financial wherewithal to do so. That's what we want to fight against and plan against in the work we do for clients, and what you want to do when you're looking at your finances and your ability to build wealth and a nest egg. So if you have the option, you can do it if you want to, or if it's thrust upon you, you can handle it. But sometimes people think that they just got to keep working. And I've met people where they have plenty of money to retire. They just hadn't really thought through it and realized that they actually had achieved what they set out to do. They just hadn't sort of recognized it yet.
Right. And that's what brings me back to purpose. Like the purpose of saving for retirement is to eventually retire. So if you don't know that goal, if you don't know that purpose, that number kind of that you're looking for, and look back on it, this is what I'm saving for. Once I've saved for it, I'm good. I should be able to enjoy my life. If I want to keep on working, I'll do that. But if I really don't want to keep on working, well, I've kind of fulfilled my purpose with this retirement fund, so I can be done.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So moving along, we have 2 more left. My self-worth is my net worth. And this is related to I can never have enough. But I think the way to illustrate this the best in my mind is when I pass away, I don't want the only thing to be written about me is what my net worth is.
That's a good point.
As much pride as I take and as how much effort I've put into being financially successful over my career, building a business, making money, taking care of my family, building a nest egg, moving to, like we just talked about, a time that if I wanted to step away from work completely or work less or do something different, that all options are on the table. I take tremendous pride in all of that, But I don't want the only thing that can be said about me after I'm gone is what my net worth is. Would be upsetting, to say the least. But there are some people that put so much value in their net worth that's so important that it becomes toxic because it crowds out all other things. The example of somebody that works so much to make money and build wealth and achieve financial success that they have unhealthy relationships with their family, their spouse, their children. In my mind, that's not a good sacrifice. That's not a good swap. And I think you could largely do both. And I think history shows from people that are uber successful to people that are modestly successful, and even people that are not financially successful, you can still have other worthy things in your life and other fulfilling, healthy relationships and experiences with those loved ones. So driving for wealth creation and financial freedom, financial success is very worthy, noble goal. But if you're driven in a toxic way and you only identify your self-worth with your net worth, that's very destructive. You usually see these in the movies, right, Lindy? Where you have somebody like that at the beginning of the movie and they have an epiphany during the movie where they realize that they're not living the life they were meant to live because they did not pay attention to other things in their lives.
Yes.
I'm thinking of, I know this is not in my notes or anything. Do you remember the movie Nicolas Cage is I think it's Nicolas Cage, and Tia Leone is his wife, but he's a high-powered attorney. And then he has like a Christmas miracle. He goes back in time. There's a version of that where then he realizes that his wife and family mean something. I don't know, I'm screwing up the whole thing. There's a lot of movies. This is a Hollywood cliche.
Yeah. Well, I think on the other side of this, and a really big drawback of maybe having this toxic belief, is that what if something horrible happens? Like, what if you have a really bad medical emergency or something, and it costs you so much money to take care of, and something happens to one of your kids or something, and it really does put a hit on your net worth? Well, does that really mean that about you? Does that mean that you're a bad person because your net worth went down because something bad happened to you?
Oh yeah.
It shouldn't be like that. It says nothing about you as a person.
Yes. And related to that, I'm thinking about something very, very wise you have said to me is, well, before I get to that, a good example of this is, somebody that, has a job and they have a lot of stuff wrapped up in the job or the business, and they lose the job or the business has a setback, maybe even goes out of business. If you have too much of your self-worth wrapped up in that, you're in for a tough road. And the wise thing you've said to me is, when you have received criticism or mistakes were made, you say, it's not me, it's something that happened to me. That this is my word, not your word, that you never say, I'm stupid. You say, I did something stupid. I am not bad at my job, but you could say, I made a mistake. You don't have too much wrapped up in the financial part of things. And I think that serves you very, very well and is part of your key to success. It's not strictly in my self-worth is my net worth toxic money belief, but it is kind of related, because bad things are going to happen. We all make mistakes, and you can't be too hard on yourself.
Exactly.
So the last one, Lindy, maybe one of my favorites to talk about.
We did a podcast on this.
We did do a whole podcast on this. So we'll keep this brief as we finish up. But toxic money belief is that you have to act in a way to keep up with the Joneses. So why don't you kick it off?
So social media has been probably one of the worst things that have happened to us because of this right here. We can now see what people across the US are doing, across the world are doing, and everybody always represents on social media the very best parts of themselves that make you jealous, that make you think that you aren't doing what you should be doing. And keeping up with the Joneses has actually been like biologically programmed into humans to be accepted with our communities for survival of our species. So way back in the day, like, this was a very important thing. Like, we had to be accepted by our communities. We had to be like everybody else, so we didn't get kicked out, because we needed the community to survive. Things are not like that now. Like, we are, like you had said, we are the richest country. Like, we can all survive without having the approval of other people now. So this thing that has been deeply ingrained in us is just no longer useful to us at all.
Are you often guilty, or have you been in the past, with this pressure to keep up with the Joneses?
I think everybody feels it. I mean, it is one of those things. It is deeply ingrained in all of us.
Yes.
And I think just recognizing that and knowing that you're falling victim to that biological programming that you have is really the first step in trying to combat that, and recognizing that when it happens.
Yes. And social media, and I stole this line from somebody else, it's not my original thought, but you're seeing other people's highlight reel. So you can't read too much into it. Now, listen, looking at other people that are successful, that are buying things, having experiences, if that's aspirational for you and you want to model after it, that's healthy. That's good.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about where you do things that are financially destructive, that don't make sense on the plan you should have, assuming you have a plan. And if you don't, you ought to have one, just to try and keep up. So if somebody buys an expensive vehicle, you shouldn't go buy an expensive vehicle so that you look good compared to that person.
Right.
Nobody cares about that except you. And if you do have somebody in your life that cares about that, maybe you should really think about the importance of that relationship, because it's not a healthy one. But we all have this, and I appreciate your honest answer. The The cool thing is to say, I don't care what people think. Everybody cares what people think. Now, some people care more than others. Sometimes it depends on what realm it is. There's parts of my life where I don't really care what people think. And then there's other parts where being embarrassed is incredibly difficult for me.
Yes.
So I really do care what people think. So nobody is perfect when it comes to this, nor should you be. But you often see a lot of times people have trouble getting ahead, making good financial decisions simply because they're trying to keep up with some supposed path that other people are on. And usually you don't even know if it's real or not. I've used this example for a long time, but years ago when I was affiliated, I was a financial planner for a bank, by the way, terrible business experience. But there would be this guy that would come in the bank that was tall, dark, handsome, had a gorgeous suit on, came and drove into the bank parking lot in this gorgeous, expensive vehicle. And I'm, as a financial planner, I'm like, wow, I should probably meet that guy. Maybe he would be a client. But it turns out that regularly he would come in the bank to take a cash advance off of his credit card.
Ooh.
Very destructive. Clearly a sign that you're living above your means. And there's different expressions for this, but he was all flash, no cash. Or the Texas version of this, not that I'm a cowboy, is all hat, no cattle. It was just a mirage. He was broke. He was broke. And I actually met and spoke with him, and he was broke. On the other side of the coin, there is a very popular book, The Millionaire Next Door, that was written years ago. And there's a more modern one that was written through the Dave Ramsey organization. I forget the name of it, but they profile millionaires. And most billionaires are not all flash, no cash. They live beneath their means. They live a good life. They try and make good decisions. They put money away regularly. I mean, they follow some basic, wise, best practices with money, and they fight against keeping up with the Joneses by and large. So that's a healthy habit. It's a toxic one when you are overly focused on keeping up with the Joneses, especially because oftentimes they're broke and you wouldn't want to emulate them. You'd want to emulate what they bought or what they did, but you wouldn't want to emulate the behind the scenes, the backstage part of things.
Right.
Cool. I do say, Lindy, that, and I don't know if this is the other thing, this is the same for other people, but I find that as I get older and I become more affluent, and I don't know which it is, it's probably a combination, I care less about what other people think. I don't know.
I've found that I'm getting more that way too. I don't think that's everybody, because, we've seen people, even some clients that we have, struggle with that still, and some older clients. So I don't think it's just age, maybe maturity.
Yeah, could be. So this is the end of our 3-part series. I hope everyone has joined listening to it and got value out of it. I've certainly enjoyed just, Lindy, you and I talking about these different things that in some form or fashion we've probably talked about, but just to put it in kind of a concise kind of discussion topic, I've really appreciated and enjoyed it. So
yeah, it was fun.
Thanks for taking the time with me. Listeners, check out our website. Go to elliottwealth.com. You could find more information about me, about Lindy, the rest of the team, and the work we do here to help our clients win with money. So check it out, elliottwealth.com, and I'll be back with you on the next episode of the Simply Financial podcast very soon.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of SagePoint Financial Incorporated and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note, the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of the information provided at these websites, nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues or any consequences arising out of your access to your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management, LLC, not affiliated with SagePoint Financial.